Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello learners, welcome back to the course on AI in Human Resource Management. Today we'll try to discuss one of the most important topics of the entire course curriculum, which is HR metrics. Now HR metrics has been quite a buzzword because many organizations now use objective measures to actually understand the performance of the employees. So we'll dig deeper into HR metrics and we'll see what exactly is this HR metrics. What is the importance of HR metrics? What are the different dimensions of HR metrics? How you choose the right metrics, and that would be the most important part of this lecture, how you would choose the right metrics, and moreover, what exactly are the challenges you face when you actually try to use the HR metrics. I'm Dr. Abraham Cyril Issac. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Business, Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati. Now, when you look into HR metrics per se, we have to first understand what it is and why it is being used. Let's understand that HR metrics typically are quantitative measures. They give objectivity to the parameters you are actually measuring, which mostly would be latent variables. I hope you understand what I mean by latent variable. When you actually try to measure some aspects like, let's say, personality, or maybe some aspects like what I do research mainly on knowledge sharing, knowledge hiding specifically, or leadership. These are all latent variables. You cannot directly see or say that, okay, this is the objective measure of, let's say, knowledge hiding, or this is the objective measure of personality. So we tend to develop scales for that. We tend to develop measures for that, which is validated, which is later standardized, and that's what we use in research. Similarly, HR metrics has a certain level of advantage because it brings objectivity to it. That is what we try to underscore here as HR metrics being a quantitative measure. When you look into the entire HR metrics availability, or let's say the usability, HR metrics are used to assess the efficiency and effectiveness of human resource management practices within an organization. So these metrics essentially provide insights into the workforce and help HR professionals make informed decisions. In other words, HR metrics or human resource metrics are also used to track and evaluate. These are the two important aspects: tracking, not only tracking but also evaluating. So basically, it does track and evaluate various aspects of human resource activities within an organization. So these metrics provide valuable insights into the effectiveness, and they help the organizations make data-driven decisions to optimize their workforce and improve overall business performance. Now let's look into the key functions of HR metrics. When we talk about key functions of HR metrics, we have to start obviously with the performance, because this is what the rationale behind HR metrics was when it was introduced. HR metrics allow organizations to assess the performance of specific HR functions, be it recruitment, be it training, be it employee engagement. So by measuring performance, organizations can identify areas for improvement and implement targeted strategies. Another significant function where HR metrics are quite useful tool is the trend analysis. Tracking HR metrics over time enables organizations typically to identify the trends and patterns in workforce dynamics. So this analysis can inform strategic planning and help predict future workforce needs. We also look into the functions of HR metrics. We have to understand that resource being a bigger constraint, resource allocation always emerges as one of the key functions of HR metrics. And please note, by analyzing metrics related to hiring or training or even employee turnover, organizations can allocate resources more effectively. So this ensures that investments in human capital typically yield the best possible returns. We also see that there is an evaluation that is happening with respect to employee experience. Metrics that related to employee satisfaction or even employee engagement, these metrics provide essentially insights into the overall employee experience. So understanding these factors is vital for improving retention rates and fostering a positive workplace culture. We also do have the compliance and risk management as an emerging function of HR metrics. When you look into certain HR metrics, typically they help organizations monitor the compliance with, let's say, regulations or labor laws, reducing the risk of legal issues related to employee practice or employment practices altogether. When you look into HR metrics, we have to understand what are the different common HR metrics or what do they include certainly. Now, when you look into HR metrics, the first and foremost information we want is the turnover rate and how do they include this. The percentage of employees who leave the organization over a specified period, this is what turnover is. So it helps assess employee retention and satisfaction. Similarly, when it has a certain or gives a certain idea of turnover rate, it also gives the time to hire. The average number of days typically it takes to fill a job vacancy. This metric typically evaluates the efficiency of the recruitment process. You will agree with me when I say that when you need to hire is as important as whom you are hiring. When you need to hire, the time to hire, if you have this HR metric, then it is easily going to increase your efficiency within the organization. There is also a possible analysis or estimation possible for cost per hire, and this particular HR metric, the total cost associated with recruiting and hiring new employee, it could include, let's say, something like advertising, something like if you are going through a recruitment agency, the fees, recruitment agency fees, and even if you are giving onboarding on the training cost related. So all these aspects can be well calculated within the ambit of cost per hire. Another significant score would be the employee engagement score, a measure of how committed and motivated employees are within the workplace. And this can be obtained as I already mentioned, these are latent variables. So typically, there might be some standardized surveys or scales which can give this objective measure. And also, one of the most critical aspect would be absenteeism rate. When you look into the percentage of work days lost due to employee absence, we see that high absenteeism may indicate low morale or workplace issues. Many research studies have actually corroborated that understanding. So basically, this is what common HR metrics include. They also include training costs per employee. I have touched upon it in the previous slide, but the average amount spent on training and development typically for each employee, reflecting investment in employee development. It also has a dimension of diversity ratio. Please note, ladies and gentlemen, the percentage of employees from diverse background, helping to evaluate the organization's commitment to diversity and inclusion. This is a vital parameter when it is with respect to any organization. You look into the promotion rate, the percentage of employees promoted within a specific time frame, indicating internal growth opportunities, indicating the succession planning that the organization is having, indicating the reason to stay back in your organization. Or another significant aspect could be the HR to employee ratio. When you're looking into the number of HR staff compared to the total number of employees, it reflects unequivocally the efficiency of HR operations. And finally, you also have the employee productivity, which is or which should have been the most important aspect It often measures the revenue per employee. It assesses how effectively employees contribute to the organization's financial performance. So, by analyzing these metrics, all of them, right from what we have seen in the beginning, be it the performance measurement or the trend analysis, resource, whatever it may be, or what we have seen in this slide, the turnover rate, time to hire, cost per hire, or even the employee productivity, we see that by analyzing these metrics, organizations can typically identify the trends, gauge the effectiveness of HR initiatives, and make strategic decisions to improve overall work performance, if you ask me. So, this is what the common HR metrics include. Now, let's look into the relevance or the importance of the HR metrics, and we'll start with the possibility of this data-driven decision making. Please note, HR metrics empowers organization to make informed decisions based on empirical data rather than intuition. So, the data-driven approach enhances the effectiveness of HR strategies and ensures that they are aligned with overall business objectives. Similarly, when I talk about organization behavior, I talk about even labor welfare, industrial relations, even in this class of AI in HRM, I will definitely try to stress on this aspect of strategic alignment, and this is very much important. By tracking HR metrics, organizations can ensure that their human resource initiatives actually align with the overall business goals. Analyzing these HR metrics typically enables organizations to allocate resources more effectively across hiring, training, and compensation. So, this typically ensures that investments in human capital yield the optimal returns. This is what the attempt of every single organization is, to get the optimal returns for each of the resource that is being spent. Another significant aspect would be the continuous improvement, what Japanese call as Kaizen. Regularly analyzing HR metrics allows the organizations to identify areas for improvement and adapt their strategies accordingly. So, by tracking HR metrics, organizations can pinpoint areas where they may be underperforming. So, this insights allows for targeted interventions to improve HR initiatives, typically leading to better outcomes not only in hiring but also in retention, not only in talent acquisition but also retention, and to a great extent in employee satisfaction. Then there is a possibility of enhanced accountability, and this has been underscored as another importance or another relevant aspect of HR metrics. When you talk about accountability metrics, they provide a framework for holding HR departments accountable for their performance and contributions to organizational success. So, by optimizing HR practices, let's say through effective metrics tracking, organizations can enhance their financial performance. So, you look into improved recruitment process, you are seeing reduced turnover rates and even higher employee engagement that contribute positively to the bottom line. Now, let's look into the main aspect of today's discussion, which is choosing the right HR metrics. How to choose the right HR metrics is a big question, and we'll try to give you some answer to that. Now, selecting the appropriate HR metrics is vital for organizations aiming to enhance their human resource practices, as I've already emphasized in the beginning itself, and align these things or these metrics typically with the business goals. So, there is no denying the fact that the right metrics provide valuable insights into workforce dynamics, which typically helps HR professionals make data-driven decisions. So, let's look into the typical, if I can use the flow diagram to actually how you get into the right metrics, or the algorithm how you get into the right metrics. Align metrics with the business goal. This is the first and the foremost aspect you have to understand. Understand the organizational objectives. Begin by reviewing the organization's strategic goals and objectives. determine how HR can actually support these goals through specific metrics. Let's take an example. If the organization aims to improve, let's say, employee retention, focus on the metrics related to turnover rates, or even employee satisfaction for that matter. This would actually be a right way to go ahead. So involve the key stakeholders, engage with executives and department heads to understand what are the priorities. So this collaboration will essentially ensure the chosen metrics reflect the broader business strategy. Another significant aspect when you come to the second aspect or second point would be to identify the key areas of focus. Let's look into this. If your focus is on, let's say, recruitment efficiency, if improving recruitment process is the priority, consider metrics such as time to hire or cost per hire, time or cost per hire, or even something like acceptance rate. If the priority is employee engagement and retention, for organizations, use those metrics like employee satisfaction scores, which we have seen. Satisfaction scores, or let's say something like absenteeism rates, or maybe voluntary turnover rates. So these could be some of the critical HR metrics if you actually are looking for employee engagement and retention. Now, if your priority is more of training and development, if the focus is on employee development, measuring training effectiveness through metrics such as, let's say, training completion rate, or even cost per training. Could be an easy way to go ahead with this. So these are some of the typical factors or aspects whereby you try to identify the key areas of focus. Then the third most important aspect would be to define each metric clearly. Establish definitions and formulas. When I'm telling that to establish definitions and formulas, essentially I'm meaning ensure that all stakeholders understand what each metric means and how it is calculated. Let's take an example. Define how you will calculate, let's say, turnover rate. It could be total separations divided by average number of employees. That should be the operational definition. So clearly define what you are going to measure. Another significant aspect would be, as I already mentioned, standardize the data collection method. Many a time we are dealing with latent variables. So please ensure, determine how this data will be collected for each metric, and for that consistency in data collection methods is vital for if you are even looking for even comparisons or accurate comparisons over time. So please note that you have to define each metric clearly. Now when you are there to choose the right metrics, you also need to choose the relevant metrics. You have to look into the actionable metrics. The focus should be on actionable metrics. Select metrics that typically provide insights leading to actionable outcomes. Avoid choosing metrics that are merely interesting, but please do not contribute. Avoid choosing metrics that are merely interesting, but do not contribute to decision making. Also, when you are there to choose the relevant metrics, limit the number of metrics. Many a time people do not limit or are not capable to limit the number of metrics. While it may be tempting to track numerous metrics, focusing on a smaller set of relevant metrics allows for deeper analysis and clearer insights. When you are there to choose the right metrics, please determine the frequency of reporting. This is another significant factor Decide on the reporting intervals. Establish how often you will collect and report data. Is it monthly, is it quarterly or annually? The frequency should align with the pace of business changes and the need for timely insights. Also, please note that you have to adapt reporting based on needs. Be flexible in adjusting reporting frequency based on organizational changes or specific initiatives requiring closer monitoring. When you are there to choose the right metrics, please utilize the technology for data management. When I'm talking about utilizing the technology for data management, specifically, leverage the HR software solutions. Use HRIS, HR information systems or analytic platforms to automate data collection and the reporting process. So this will aid the whole process. This will enable you to do more in terms of the strategic initiative. So this technology can streamline tracking and ensure the accuracy that is otherwise you are looking for. Another significant aspect could be to integrate the data sources. Consider integrating all the possible data sources you have access to in terms of, let's say, performance management system or payroll or whatever HR functional data you have to provide a comprehensive view of HR metrics. You can also review and adjust metrics regularly, and how you do it, you can have a continuous evaluation, regularly review the relevance of chosen metrics in light of changing business goals or workforce dynamics. So this typical evaluation ensures that HR remains aligned with the organizational priorities. Also, when you're reviewing, solicit the feedback from stakeholders. Gather input from the key stakeholders regarding the usefulness of tracked metrics and make adjustments as necessary. So to conclude, choosing the right HR metrics involves aligning them with organizational goals, defining them clearly, focusing on actionable insights, and I would say determining appropriate reporting intervals, leveraging the technology for data management and regularly reviewing their relevance. So by following all these steps which we have typically discussed now, organizations can effectively measure their HR performance and they are equipped to make informed decisions that typically enhance the workforce management and certainly drive the overall business success. Now let's look into the challenges in HR metrics. We have categorically looked into the importance and how we certainly choose the HR metrics. Now, the time has come to look into the challenges in HR metrics. Implementing and utilizing HR metrics effectively, it can definitely present several challenges for organizations. Understanding these challenges is vital for HR professionals, aiming to leverage the data to improve the workforce management and decision making altogether. So let's look into these challenges very quickly. The first and the foremost one is unclear objectives and focus. You look into many organizations, look into your organization if you are representing one, or look into your friend's organization or the organization which you are previously associated with. You will get ample examples from your surrounding itself. Implementing, many organizations struggle with defining clear objectives for their HR metrics. So without a specific focus, HR teams may attempt to tackle multiple issues simultaneously, leading to diluted efforts and ineffective outcomes. So it's essential to establish clear goals aligned with organizational priorities to ensure that the metrics provide actionable insights. When you are looking into the challenges, data quality, which we have touched upon in the previous module, is also one of the real culprit with respect to accuracy. So the effectiveness of HR metrics totally relies heavily. The effectiveness of HR metrics relies heavily on the quality of the data collected. So inaccurate, incomplete, or even outdated data can lead to misleading insights and poor decision making. So organizations must typically, I would say, invest in robust data management processes to maintain high quality data that accurately reflects workforce dynamics. Another significant factor would be the lack of resources. When you're talking about the lack of resources, please note, implementing effective HR metrics often requires significant resources. It includes technology, it includes, let's say, skilled personnel, it includes even financial investment. So many organizations face this budget constraints that limit their ability to acquire necessary tools or hire experts in typically data analytics. So this lack of resources can hinder the development of a comprehensive HR metrics program. There is also this long-going resistance to change, and this is not only with respect to AI. Any technology that comes into any organization, there is always a resistance to change for multifarious reasons. One could be that the job insecurity that the technology change would actually bring in. So the adoption of new HR metrics and analytics practices may encounter resistance from employees and management who are accustomed to the traditional method. So, change management strategies are vital to overcome this particular resistance. It could include, let's say, something as simple as clear communication about the benefits of using the data-driven approaches totally. Another significant challenge could be the gaps in data collection. We have discussed about the data quality and accuracy, but we have to also see the gaps in data collection. Inconsistent or incomplete data collection can create gaps that undermine the validity of HR metrics. Let's take an example to understand this. Let's say if not all managers track the employee performance consistently, it becomes challenging to analyze overall performance trends accurately. So, ensuring comprehensive data collection across all departments is vital for effective analysis or effective understanding and final decision making. Other significant challenges in HR metrics could be the lack of stakeholder buy-in. Successful implementation of HR metrics typically requires support from key stakeholders. We have categorically established that. It includes even executives, it includes even departmental heads. So without their buy-in, it can be very difficult to secure the necessary resources and commitment to use the HR metrics effectively in decision-making process. Other aspects, as I discuss within the course time and again, would be the ethical considerations. Please note, as organizations increasingly rely on data analytics for HR decisions, ethical considerations regarding employee privacy and data security become paramount. So organizations must typically ensure that their data collection practices comply with legal regulations and ethical standards to maintain the typical employee trust that otherwise, if shattered, would actually create or lead to a lot of issues within the organization and outside. Another significant aspect could be the skills gap. When you talk about HR professionals, many of them may lack the necessary skills in data analysis. This is a fact, and interpretation to actual analysis is another significant talent they need to build or develop. So these are typical attributes required to leverage the HR metrics effectively. So organizations need to invest in training programs, or let's say hire specialists for that matter, who can bridge the skill gap and enhance the overall analytical capabilities of the entire HR team. Another significant challenge would be integrating with existing system. So new HR metric tools with existing system, the integration might be difficult. Let us take an example of human resource information system. If the HRIS system is not compatible with the legacy systems, it might be a big trouble in terms of cost, in terms of investment. So please note, organizations must ensure that their technology infrastructure supports the seamless integration to facilitate accurate data collection and reporting. And finally, if the overemphasis is there on metrics without context, this again is another typical reason for lack of productive output. In other words, focusing solely on quantitative metrics without considering the qualitative factors. See, the human element cannot be actually taken away. So, without considering the qualitative factors can actually lead to an incomplete understanding of the workforce dynamics. So, it is essential for organizations to interpret the metrics within the broader context of organizational culture, within the broader context of employee sentiment, and even external market conditions. So, if I have to conclude the particular discussion on the challenges, while HR metrics significantly offer valuable insights into workforce management, please note organizations must navigate several challenges to implement them effectively. So, by addressing issues related to unclear objectives or data quality or resource allocation, or even what we have seen as stakeholder buy-in or ethical considerations or skill gaps or integration challenges or contextual interpretations, HR professionals can harness the power of metrics to drive informed decision making and improve the overall organizational performance. So, when we are looking into HR metrics, though it opens up a bigger opportunity, it opens up a bigger aspect of improving the measure of the performance or the measure of the organization in itself in terms of its productivity. It has certain riders, it brings in certain conditions, especially the one which I concluded with. If the measure is just quantitative, if you are not considering qualitative, many a time in research also we tend to use this example. Let's say if I want to ask or I want to know a strategic decision or the implication of a strategic decision, let's look into a particular example. A company is going to expand to another country, let's say Sri Lanka. So, I want to know about the expansion decision, or I want to know the nitty-gritties of those expansion decision. Whom should I ask? Should I do a survey for the 10,000 employees working for that company, or should I ask the board of directors or board of governors for that fact? Many a time this could be taken or seen in a reverse fashion also. Let's say I want to understand the working conditions of labor or employees in a company. Should I survey the 10,000 workers who are working there, or should I ask just a few bunch of board of directors or the board of governors? So, this is the significance of qualitative and quantitative research. Many a time there are contexts, there are situations where you have to do qualitative research, where I have to know or I have to understand the strategic decision of an expansion. I have to ask the board of governors, even that being a small chunk. But sometimes if I want to know the real working conditions, I have to actually ask the people who are affected. So, many a time we see that the situation or the context defines the approach. Similarly, HR metrics is a good platform which gives us objective measures. We have seen the positives, we have seen the importance, but that said, if you are not taking the decision with a qualitative touch, with a human touch, I think we might make sometimes wrong decisions. So, that's the food for thought for today. We'll see you with more details in another lecture. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.